So, what is proper English? Who dictates that? Who decides this is correct and this is incorrect? You know, they say that English broke away from all the other languages around 500 AD. And for centuries upon centuries upon centuries, nobody cared. Everyone spoke and wrote however they wanted, and it didn't matter. Even Shakespeare, who lived from 1564 to 1616, he spelled his name 3 different ways. And historians have actually found 14 different spelling variations that people used to write about him and his works. So really, at this time, no one cared. It wasn't until we hit about the 1650s that people started thinking about the English language. And something started happening, something I like to call the Grammatical Revolution. Now, it's important to note that this was happening right on the tail end of another really important movement in Europe, and that was the Scientific Revolution. Now, this was an amazing time. We had people like Copernicus coming forward and hypothesizing that the Earth was the center of the universe. We had then Galileo, 100 years later, as we all know, come forward and say, no, he was wrong, it was the sun. And he eventually died for that belief. We had Isaac Newton, who we heard about today, coming up with that law of universal gravitation. We had Sir Isaac Bacon, René Descartes, developing systems of logic, which eventually led to the scientific method. So this was an amazing, amazing time where people were questioning the world around them, when they were developing systems, systematizing our universe. So it's not surprising that while the scientists were very focused on organizing our world, the academics, the linguists, the writers, the authors, and the philosophers started turning to the English language. So this was really exciting. But at this point in time, when they started looking at English, they actually thought English was in a sad state of affairs. They thought we were lagging way, way behind. Colleagues in France, for example, had already established their Academie to govern over the French language in 1635. But for English, it wasn't until the early 1700s we even had an officially recognized dictionary or grammar guides or style guides. So it's pretty good that by the 1700s, we see the birth of proper English. And thankfully, we have all these rules and mandates now, because what would the English teachers and the grammarians and the language purists do with all of their time if we couldn't be cutting people down about the way that they speak and putting people in place for their language use? So these last 300 years out of the centuries and centuries of the English language have been the first time that we've actually started to focus on this idea of proper English. But the world's English is changing. And actually, I should say English is, because it is plural. They're all changing, despite the fact that people are fighting this trend and saying, no, we need rules, we need regulations, it needs to be proper. But still, it's changing, and it will continue to change based on how we choose to use the language.